Let's talk about Russia's potential involvement in this. So we know it was this group DarkSide, a separate group which conducted the ransomware attack at Colonial Pipeline. Did President Putin, have knowledge of this in your view, and did he have anything to do with it?
I don't know if he had knowledge of it. He doesn't have to, because I think what he's doing, he's encouraging the use of these groups. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. He may not like these groups, but as long as they are perpetrating, disruption against the United States, that's fine with him. And Doug, it's amazing when you go back and look at this group and look at its website and what it said its targets are. It's not targeting any countries that were part of the former Soviet bloc. It's not targeting Eastern European countries. It's targeting English-speaking companies. And so the reason they can operate there is, years ago, I wrote a couple chapters in the 4th edition Computer Security Handbook. And I thought, okay, we'll get better with time. It hasn't gotten better. I mean, this was 18 years ago, I wrote these chapters. We have no extradition treaty with Russia. They very rarely cooperate on criminal investigations. You have to have a mutual legal assistance treaty called an MLAT. We don't have those in place with many of the countries who are our biggest problem. So where do criminal gangs operate out of? With the implicit approval of Vladimir. He may not know they exist, but he allows them to exist because he does not direct action to be taken to stop them from operating, just like the Internet Research Agency during the 2016 elections. Did Vladimir know about that? I would say absolutely. And he probably knows these things are going on, and he probably now knows about this group. But it's his policies of allowing this to go on. It's Xi Jinping allowing, quote, non-state actors inside of China to continue to perpetrate these things. They allow this to happen. Had this been going on in the United States, we went after the mafia. We would go after criminal gangs. We would go after terrorist groups operating in the United States. They're allowed to operate with impunity, basically, in these countries because we can't extradite them.
And would retaliatory attacks by the United States, from the United States, help resolve this situation, this proliferation of ransomware attacks?
It's kind of a double-edged sword. Here's the problem. Here's what I think we ought to do. The same way that when, we finally put enough pressure on Yemen to where Osama bin Laden left Yemen and went to Afghanistan. He obviously launched the attacks out of Afghanistan, but we held the country Afghanistan responsible. We held the Taliban responsible. I think we have to employ the same mindset to say, you, Russia, are allowing these things to go on. We may not obviously that we're not talking kinetically, like, we're not going to drop bombs and bullets yet. We don't know what's going to happen. But we should sanction Russia because they allow this to go on. We should sanction Russia as though Russian government itself was the one perpetrating this. There ought to be a price to pay for allowing criminal gangs to operate. So I think there ought to be a retaliatory strike of some type in cyberspace, and it ought to be one of those things. You took down our pipeline, guess what? We're taking down your pipeline. But the problem is, Doug, we're the good guys. We don't do that. We don't do anything like that would affect life, health, safety. Give it a few days, it may not have a big impact, but if it goes on, we're talking about fuel for generators. We're talking about fuel for airplanes. We're talking about fuel, for public safety vehicles, for fire engines. What happens when all that stuff is tied up and going away? The price goes up, and at the end of the day, Doug, who pays? You and I do, because the consumer always pays for stuff like this.